Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Society of River Falls. I'm Nancy Miller, a long-term member here, and I have the honor of presiding today, and we have a fabulous program. Professor Eileen Korenic is... Professor Korenic will be educating us this morning on Cubism and relativity, and I think truths. Too many big concepts. And Dr. Korenic has agreed that she'll sign and give you 3 college credits when we're done with today's talk. So I hope that you will all greet her afterwards and thank her for this wonderful talk today. So the Unitarian Universalist Society in River Falls has been around for something like 40 years. A number of folks who care about truth and spirituality and community got together and follow the ideas of Unitarian Universalism, which I would say boil down to every person has the same value as every other person, and we need to support every person and care for them equally. And at the end of our service, we read these words on the wall, we hold hands, we form a circle, and they have given me strength for over 25 years, these ideas. So I hope that you come away today with a better understanding of Cubism and Absolutism and relativity, whether it's special or general, and that's what we have for you today. So I'm new to presiding with this clicker and all this.
Try again.
Toward you or there?
Doesn't matter. There you go.
So the Unitarian Universalism is a worldwide organization and ideas, and the center of it is love, and these are our principles. The service today will start with opening words, then the chalice lighting. We'll greet one another. We share our joys and concerns. Eileen Korenic will speak about absolutism. We'll have announcements, closing words, and we'll gather then and form a circle and profess those closing words. So, Callum, if you would. So I'll read these words of Einstein for you. 100 times every day, I remind myself that my inner and outer life are based on the labors of others, living and dead, and that I must exert myself in order to give in the same measure as I have received and am still receiving. Keep your light shining, folks. So we greet one another. We'll take a few minutes if you would stand and say hello to your neighbors. It's nice to formally be obligated to get up and be social. For some of us, that's kind of a weird thing, but the more you do it, the easier it gets. It really does. So for Joys and Concerns, we have an opportunity for the community to express our joys and concerns, and we take a stone and put it in the water and let the ripples do what they will. And I'll start today. It is a tremendous joy to be in this beautiful space with lovely people. Thanks for being here. So, come up as you will.
So yesterday, my sister had a play, the Shrek play, and she did such a good job, and I'm so happy for her.
For those of you that don't know, I'm Colin. I play I play football at the university here in town, and yesterday we were able to beat our rivals at a UW Stout and outright win the WIAC for the first time in 40 years. So it's awesome to be part of that. And it was funny, the quote that was up there is our opening words from Albert Einstein. Our coach constantly reminds us of the history. He's been there for 15 years, and he's been 1-10 and 0-10 and 1-9, and we're constantly built off of over I think 130 years of football being played there. So it's nice to recognize the history and appreciate those who built the program, so we can be there and celebrate it today. Yeah.
Well, my joy today is that yesterday my husband and I both went to a one-day leadership training with GROW, Grassroots Organizing for Western Wisconsin, and it was tremendous. I got to meet some new people, including people from UW River Falls that have thrown their hat in the ring and want to make a difference in the world.
My name is Ann, and 2 weeks ago I fell and broke my arm, and my joy is that I had medical care to have surgery, and it's going to mend. My concern is we have a patient at the free clinic here in River Falls who has a similar injury and was not able to get the surgery, and his arm mended badly, and he will be in pain forever. Thank you.
Then for any unspoken joys and concerns, and know that our joys and concerns, those ripples, they swirl around us, so it helps us to share. Absolutism. Well, I went through a lot of years of college and higher education, and I looked at the materials that Dr. Korenic had put together for this, and honestly, I thought, wow, this is a lot of information, but she's brilliant, and we'll let her say her piece. Thank you, Dr. Korenic.
Nancy, and that was exactly the right way that I told you to give me that introduction. No, I would never call myself brilliant. First of all, thank you for having me. I've been here before, and it's always nice to speak to such an encouraging and receptive group of people, so that's always a good thing. Secondly, I got to give props to Nancy. She texted me this morning, and I will tell you, I don't text. My sister is on me all the time. You know, that's how people communicate now. And I just happened to hear this ding that I thought was the doorbell. And I thought, who is coming at 8 in the morning? You know, so I got up and I was going to sneak through the window, and there's my, the text thing on my phone. And Nancy thinks I'm awake at 8 in the morning and kindly asked, was there anything that she should set up for me? This has already been taken care of. Don and Ann already loaded everything on the machine that Jonathan is going to run for me. So thank you for thinking I'm that on top of things. Wow. I think it was Don Leek, who asked me to give this talk. And I think the reason that he had suggested this, the idea of absolutism is about, is there such a thing as absolute truth? And you can look at that from the scientific side of things, and we will do that. That's what relativity is about. That's the picture on your left-hand side there. It also occurs in the art realm of Cubism, and that's the picture on your right-hand side. So I've given this talk on absolutism, but I suspect the reason that Don asked me to do this talk is because the fourth principle of the Unitarian Universalist Society is to freely express and seek out truth. And so the question is there such a thing? Is there such a thing as real, absolute truth? And I will tell you right now, long before I ever gave this talk, one of the reasons that I really wanted to go into science and math is because I thought that's very comforting to know somebody's got the right answer somewhere. There's always the right answer. You measure something, you get a number. Boom. Science and math, that's where truth is. And then, of course, I took my first course in modern physics. Modern physics means the physics that was taught and discovered after the year 1900. Modern. That is considered modern compared to something like Isaac Newton. And my world started to crumble. With modern physics, suddenly absolutism got to be a little bit shaky. So I thought we would take a look at some of that today. Just to see, I will give you 3 credits, as Nancy said. I have no authority to do so, however. So if I write it on a piece of toilet paper, congratulations. So we're going to start out, the first piece of relativity that people examined. Let me see which way I'm going here. Oops, sorry. Okay. The first piece of relativity has to do with light. The model that we're going to use for light is we think of light as a wave, electric and magnetic energy actually waving. You can think of it like a wave on a slinky. And there are some things that we can measure. The distance between high points of a wave is called the wavelength. I gave it a fancy symbol there, so it looks more scientific. And you can also count how many waves are going by. That's the frequency. I gave that, a less complicated symbol. That was a symbol F. And it turns out that's how you classify waves. The longer that wavelength is, the redder the light looks, and the shorter that wavelength is, the bluer it looks, getting all the way into violet. And then those are related to the frequencies. You don't have to memorize that. We're just going to use some of those ideas a little bit later on. But it turns out relativity had a pretty short beginning, starting around the year 1905, culminating about the year 1915. And it turns out special relativity was the first type to be discovered, and that's the type that is related to light. So I'm going to ask you to do sort of a thought experiment with me, and this is what the experiment is going to be. I would like you to imagine yourself as observers on the ground, and I will be someone riding on a train going past you. Okay, so, and I don't want to get too far away from this because then I know the recording doesn't pick me up. But if I were on a train, and I'm coming past you, okay, and this is not by accident. This is how Einstein himself started to think about this, because in the 1900s, early 1900s, the fastest way to travel was by train. So, of course, lots of Einstein's examples had to do with trains, and he worked at the Swiss Patent Office. Again, this is not an accident. Many of the patents that were coming across his desk were, how do you measure time for the railroads? Well, it didn't matter if you were transporting wheat. Who cares when it gets to the next station? But as it gets more commercialized, and you now have people waiting for the train to show up, when is it going to be here? When is it going to get to where I want to be? Well, now they had to start figuring out something about measuring time on trains. And so he was reading a lot of patents that were coming through telling him or suggesting how that might be done. So here I am. I'm the person on the train. You are people on the ground. And what I'd like to do is imagine, and this is something even Galileo thought about long before there were trains. He thought about the exact same idea. What if you have a ship and there's a cannonball rolling around on the ship? Basically the same idea. I know how to draw trains. I don't know how to draw ships. So that's why we got this picture. So this is the idea, okay? I'm going to be the person on the train, and I've got a baseball. And let's say I'm really, really good, and I can throw a ball at 1 meter per second. I'm not going to do it because I'll probably take out a window. And it turns out that's not that bad of a number. Nolan Ryan in 1974 pitched 100.9 miles per hour, 45 meters per second. So this is way, way slow, okay? But it's an easy number for me to draw and look at, okay? So 1 meter per second. Now, you're standing still on the ground. I'm standing on a non-moving train. I take the ball and I throw it with my characteristic 1 meter per second. How fast do I think the ball is traveling relative to me?
1 meter per second.
1 meter per second. How fast do you think the ball is traveling relative to you?
Are you going this way or that?
I'm not moving yet. There's no motion at all.
So the train is not moving.
The train's not moving, I'm not moving, I just throw the ball. How fast do you think the ball is traveling relative to you? 1 meter per second, okay? Now, let's make it a little more complicated. Let's suppose we have a train that travels at 500 meters per second, way out of the realm of reality. But again, you know, it's a number, okay? And I'm going to be riding the train, okay? This time I'm holding the ball, not throwing it. I'm just holding it, but I'm going past you at 500 meters per second. How fast do I think the ball is traveling relative to me?
Still 1 meter per second.
I haven't even thrown it yet. Zero, right? I haven't even thrown it. How fast do you think the ball is traveling relative to you? 500. And we can disagree. We have different numbers. We can disagree about that as long as I keep saying relative to whom. Notice I said whom. I'm good at English. Okay? And then, of course, what the next part is that makes it a little more complicated. The train is now traveling 500 meters per second. This is how trains travel, okay? And I now throw the ball. How fast do I think the ball is traveling relative to me?
1 meter per second.
1 meter per second, because that's all I know how to do, right? How fast do you think the ball is traveling relative to you? 501. It already had the 500 from the train. I gave it one more. We could make this still more complicated. If I throw the ball opposite the direction that the train is moving, how fast do you think the ball is going? 499. You have just mastered the art, the calculus of vectors. That's how it works. You add up numbers going this way or numbers going that way. And everybody was perfectly fine with that. The big question, though, was if you're going to measure time on a train or any moving object, can you do this exactly the same thing? So these are the answers we were set with as long as it was a ball. Einstein had the fortune, or good fortune, or maybe the genius to ask, what if it's not a ball? What if it's light? What if it's light traveling instead of a ball? So we can draw the same picture again. Light travels at 300 million meters per second. The train travels at 500 meters per second. If I now have a light source, well, you can't see the light source in between, but the light is traveling, okay? If I now turn on the light source, I'm at rest and you're at rest. How fast is the light traveling relative to me? 300 meters per second. We're traveling, though. Now, suppose we do this, oh, excuse me, we're at rest. How fast do you think the ball is traveling relative to you? We're still all at rest. Whatever it was, 300 million meters per second. I forget which numbers I used. Excuse me. Now, the question is, can we use that in an analogy? If I'm now on the train and I'm riding along with my light source, how fast do I think the light is traveling relative to me? 300 million meters per second. How fast do you think the light is traveling relative to you?
800 million meters per second.
800 million?
That's 300 plus 500.
300 million plus 500.
Oh, wait. Oh, 500. Okay. So, okay, so.
300 million plus 500. Okay? As it turns out, people were doing experiments on this. The first experiment that really proved conclusively what the result was done in the 1890s by a man named Albert Michelson, the first American to win a Nobel Prize. And what he measured was if you do exactly the same thing, yeah, the person traveling with the light source, 300 million meters per second. The person watching the light source going by measures 300 million meters per second. Light does not work the same way as a ball. And nobody could figure out why, but it was measured over and over again. And that means, of course, that light is special. How many recognize this guy? Okay, about half of you, yeah, this was Dana Carvey's church lady. Isn't that special? Yeah, light. Light is special. Light is the only thing that does not follow those add up the speeds vector rules. Light is special. But it turns out, even though everybody will measure the same speed for light, not everybody will see the same thing. So if light is trapped, and the effect of this is called the Doppler effect. I won't go into all of the details of it. But it turns out, if you are traveling towards the light source, or excuse me, if there's no motion at all, you might see yellow coming from that light. But if there is motion from that same light source, either coming towards you or you're moving towards it, you're going to see the light look just a little bit shorter. You're going to encounter the light sooner than you normally would, and it's going to look bluer. Same speed, we all measure the same speed, but now it looks bluer. And if we do the opposite of that, relative motion away from the light source, we now have to wait a little bit longer to encounter each wave. It now is going to look like the light is a little bit longer wavelength. It's in fact going to look redder. We say it's red-shifted. The light will look different, but everybody will measure the same speed. And so the rule of special relativity is that all observers measure the same speed for light. Speed is equal to distance divided by time. That's why Einstein united those together in something called space-time. But he claims how we measure distance and how we measure time depends on our relative motion with who's doing the measuring and where is the light source. So space and time measurements have to stay the same, or they have to change consistently with each other so everybody still gets the same speed for light. And it turns out, of course, motion is more complicated than that. If you start or stop or turn around, that makes it even ickier. Now there are more calculations to be done. Luckily, all the calculations only require algebra, which is kind of surprising. You'd think this would be so complicated, but it doesn't require any more than a calculator that is on your phone. It just does algebra, that's all you need. But so people started to make some measurements of this, and one of the things that they measured was if space and time actually change their values, if there is relative motion, can we measure that? And one of the experiments that was done to measure that was that two very accurate clocks were flown in planes. One was flown flying west, one was flown flying east. And now we're back to a much more complicated version of the baseball and the train. So there were two men named Hafley and Keating. This is now called the Hafley-Keating experiment, duh. There's no creativity in naming that at all. What they did was flying planes in opposite directions. They went on board these planes and they carried atomic clocks with them. Atomic clocks measure time by looking at the oscillation of atoms. One of the things that I think is completely hysterical is they flew commercially, so they had to buy seats for themselves, but they also had to buy a seat for each of the atomic clocks that they brought on board. I just think that's hilarious. And they kept in constant contact with the pilot so they could keep track of, how fast were they actually going. And it turns out, one was flown east, one was flown west. Compared to a clock on the ground, the west flying plane actually ran faster. Read that more time had gone by, ran faster. So that's flying from west to east. The one flying from east to west actually seemed to have lost time. It actually went slower. It clicked slower. It counted time slower. And, of course, this was a kind of a surprise to a lot of people. The question is, why is there a difference? And the difference is the east flying plane, the one that was flying from west to east, already got a boost of 1,000 miles per hour from the Earth, plus whatever a plane can do. So 1,000 miles per hour from the Earth, plus whatever the plane can do, that's like me throwing a ball on a moving train. You got to add those numbers together. It's going faster. The plane that flew in the other direction did not get that boost. In fact, it got subtracted from the speed. The one that was flying towards the west, actually the clock ran slower. What Einstein and what Keating concluded from this is there's only one speed through space-time. That's all that there is. And the faster you go through space, the slower you go through time. If you're moving fast through space, you're going slower through time. You can only move at one speed. If you're using up that speed to go through space, you don't go as quickly through time. This is one of those crazy reasons, like, this is why you should take up running. Because the faster you're moving through space, like running, the slower you're moving through time. You don't age as fast. This is absolutely true, physically speaking. Okay, it's a matter of micro-nanoseconds, but still, it is in fact actually true. The other thing that happens is that there is some length contraction. As you move through space, someone who is looking at you as you move through space is going to look like they are being compressed. This happens no matter how fast you're going. So yeah, you do want to run again, because anybody who's looking at you is going to look like is going to think you're getting skinnier. I'll take any excuse I can, okay? But so it looks like you are contracting as you move through space. And so but the effect of this is, this happens for any pair of observers. If I look at you and you're moving through space, I think your clock is running slow and I think you're skinnier. You look at me as we're passing each other, you're going to think that my clock is running slow and I'm skinnier. And this is measurable. This is not a, kind of seems like that. This is absolutely, truly measurable. And that means, where is the truth of the distance measurement? Where is the truth of the time measurement? I can interpret your distance and time, and you can interpret mine, but we don't have to agree with each other. And so is there absolute truth in space and time? According to special relativity, there is not. Let me just go through this. I'll skip the next one, but these are a couple of the weird questions that come up in special relativity. If everybody measures the same speed for light, everybody, no matter how you're moving, everybody measures the same speed for light. One of the weird questions is, if you're in a car traveling at the speed of light, do the headlights come on? You're traveling at the speed of light, you turn on the headlights, does all the light bunch up inside the headlights? As you're watching it, yes. But if you're in the car, traveling at the speed of light, and the question is yes, because the rule is everybody measures the same speed for light, even if you're moving at the speed of light. Let's make it harder. What if you are in a car traveling at the speed of light and you look in a mirror? Do you see yourself? The light has to travel from you to the mirror, and back again at light speed, but you're already traveling at the speed of light. Can you see yourself in a mirror?
Yes.
And why?
Because it's for the same reason that the lights come on with a car. Because it's you traveling versus someone else observing you traveling. Someone else observing you traveling, looking in a mirror, they're not going to see your reflection.
They will, because everybody measures the same speed for light. As it doesn't matter if you're traveling with it, against it, towards it, away from it. You'll see different colors. It might be redder or it might be bluer, but everybody will see the same thing in terms of speed of light. So, special relativity, a little bit complicated, but suppose we want to think about now, let's make it more complicated still. Let's add in the idea of what if you want to stop and start and turn around and accelerate and decelerate? And that's where general relativity comes in. General relativity basically says it's basically gravity related. Gravity is an attractive force. The more mass you have, the bigger the force of gravity between them. Einstein had a different explanation for how gravity worked. His claim was that the presence of mass does not exert a force. It actually changes the shape of space-time, in the sense that if you were to put a rubber mat on 4 supporting poles and you put a weight down in the center, it's going to change the shape of the space-time that is around it. And if you were a little ant walking across that rubber sheet, for you, space would seem completely normal because that's the straightest path you can take. It isn't until you're far away that you can actually see that space-time is being changed. And so we get these rather fancy pictures, something sort of looking like that, a paperweight in the middle of a mat. We get people who are generating images of how the presence of space-time actually gets warped because of mass. And the bigger the mass, the bigger the warping gets. And so what Einstein has done, or what he used how he explained this, was if, for example, you're talking about the moon orbiting the Earth, it stays in orbit because of gravity. Einstein said, nope, the presence of the Earth actually warps space-time around it. And the moon is traveling in the straightest path the moon is traveling in the straightest path that it can take, which happens to look like a circle. So is there gravity? Hard to say now. That was such a thing that that was the first force really to be explained, and now, no, not so much anymore. The first time that this was actually measured, I think I have a little demo here. The first time this was actually measured was with something called gravity probe B. And the idea of it was, if Earth really is changing the space-time around it, we should be able to send out a spacecraft, put it into orbit around the Earth, and figure out what is the circumference, the distance around that spacecraft is going to make. So suppose this is the orbit that spacecraft would have. There's the circumference. Okay? If space-time were not warped, we should measure that circumference. Gravity probe B was sent out into space, and if Earth actually warped space-time, it would look like that, Earth at the center. Okay? Earth would be warped. And you measure that circumference. The circumference would be smaller if the presence of mass changed space-time. This is what they found. The circumference, 44,000 some kilometers, was what it would be if the force, if this effect were not present. They measured a difference of 2.8 centimeters. It was 2.8 centimeters less because of the warping of space-time. It's a tiny number, but it's measurable. The presence of Earth warps the space around it, and it's measurable. This sort of stuff has been measured a lot of times in a lot of different ways. And you can push this as far as you want. If the mass is so profound, the light can't even travel in a straight line anymore. The light travels back in on itself, and we call that thing a black hole, because the light can't get away from the warping of space-time. I just like that cartoon. This has been measured a number of times, and I'll just show you, there are experiments that have proved this, the warping of space because the position of stars seems to change as the starlight travels around the sun. It was first proved by Arthur Eddington in around 1919. He confirmed, yes, this does actually happen. So not only does distance change because of the presence of mass, but so does time change. This is my drawing of a large mass. Thank you very much. I was just drawing. And what I have here are two clocks, one close to the source of mass, one farther away from the source of mass. They both start out at the same time. I let those clocks run. The one that is closer to the source of mass actually slows down. Clocks physically slow down the closer they are to a source of mass. Who's got the real time then? The person who's close to the Earth or the person who's up in a plane? The clock that's up in the plane is actually clicking faster. Time is going by literally faster. And this does not just mean an atomic clock or a watch. It's anything that is an event that marks time, like you're blinking, like you're breathing, like the replication of your cells, like you're aging. You literally age slower if you're close to a source of mass. The closer you are to the surface of the Earth, the slower you age, the slower time goes by for you. This, too, was actually measured back in, I think it was the 1990s, I think this was done, back when there was something called the Sears Tower, back when it used to be called that. It was the tallest building in the world. And what they did was to put an atomic clock in the basement and an atomic clock in the uppermost floor, let the clocks run, and what they saw was that 1 second went by in the ground floor. A little bit more, on the order of 69 picoseconds, 69 billionths of a second more, went by in the top floor. People on the top floor of a building age faster than people on the bottom floor. Now, picoseconds, billionths of a second, does that matter? Let's let a little more time run by. 100 years go by on the ground floor, 2.2 seconds went by more on the top floor. Literally differences in time. Who's right? Who has the truth of the time measurement? Both of them are. Both of them are true. Both of them can be measured. And I hope you're already starting to feel like my version of truth is getting a little shaky. They can both be measured. Both of them are true. So there have been more experiments than this. I'll just show you a couple of others. There was something called Gravity Probe A. Clocks ran faster than a surface clock. They're measuring it over very large distances, like across the solar system. And once again, even with the effect of general relativity, there still are color changes. The color actually changes as it's moving away from or towards a source of light. Depends on the observer, what you see, which color change you see, and how fast time moves for you if you're close to a source of mass or far away from it. And that means that both the presence of movement, relative movement, or the presence of mass changes what you measure. And that means nobody gets to claim what is true. Everybody measures what they measure, and nobody is wrong. That's a very shaky thing in science. It depends on who's measuring, how you're moving relative to somebody else. Is there mass present in your vicinity or isn't there? And lest you think this is like, it just seems that way, doesn't it? Like maybe this talk seems like this has been going on for 5 hours already, hasn't it? You know, this is not how it seems. This is really, truly measurable. It's absolutely measurable. And it turns out, if you have to launch a satellite, for instance, satellites that are launched into geosynchronous orbit are traveling forward 17,500 miles per hour, which means that their clocks are actually running a little bit, the clocks are running slower because they're moving fast through space. The faster you go through space, the slower you go through time. So the clocks are running slow, but they're farther from the Earth's mass, so the clock should actually be running faster. And it turns out that the general relativity is winning. You can see, sorry. So the general relativity is winning by a little bit, and that means before any satellite gets launched, its clock has to be offset by the difference between those two. Or, that it seems like such a teeny difference. What is that, 46 minus 7? Can I do math in front of people? 39 microseconds, it's a tiny amount, but if you're off by 39 microseconds in the geopositioning satellite, and you're using your phone, find me satellite, and they're off by 39 microseconds. They're off by 100 miles in finding you on Earth. That's a big frickin' distance. And it's real. It's a real, true, measurable distance. So it turns out, from the point of view of relativity, if there's a relative motion, or you're near some kind of mass, there is going to be a difference in what you actually measure. And Einstein finally concluded, all we can say is, time is what you measure with the clock. Distance is what you measure with the ruler. And because the clock and the ruler are subject to forces of special and general relativity, the best we can say is there's no really about anything. And the best we can say is, and even physicists themselves, who are, what would you call them, full-blown atheists, actually use the phrase, a God's eye point of view, as the only privileged observer that there is in the universe. The only being that can know what is really, truly true would be a God, the God, an intelligent designer, something above what humans can do. Only some being who can see every possibility, everybody's measurements. That's the only one who gets to say, I know what's absolutely true. Everybody else, we don't get that privilege. So if there is a God, if there is a God's eye view, that's the only person who gets to say what absolute truth is. The rest of us don't have that privileged position. Now, at the same time all of this is going on, over in the world of art, we see some people, and notice the time frame. It's like right about the same time frame that this is all happening. We see people like, for instance, Cézanne, and he himself was not a Cubist, but he was kind of one of the guys who began the idea of it. Cézanne painted over 50 pictures of this mountain. It was out his backyard. Isn't that gorgeous? Please let me live there. And he painted that same mountain about 50 different times, and over the course of his career, the same mountain over and over. And you can start to see, the longer he painted, the more times he tried this, the more the paint started to look more and more like he was just using his brush. He stopped using any strokes at all, just paint, brush. It starts to look like blocks of paint. He eventually painted a piece that looks like this. Oh, you're starting to see it look more and more like blocks. And we see the rise of him paint this piece, the Four Bathers, which looks very geometric, doesn't it? It's like you can find triangles in there and rectangles and stuff. It looks less and less human. And we see the rise of the very famous Cubist, Pablo Picasso. So he was kind of like, this is sort of his signature style. Let me show you one of Picasso's earlier paintings. Picasso was born in 1881. He painted this piece called The First Communion in 1895. This is the only math I'll ask you to do. How old was he? He was 14 when he painted like that. I mean, he could paint. The guy was not a goober. He could paint. And when you look at this, it's a little hard to tell when you're just looking at a PowerPoint image like this. But take a look at just the communion dress itself. It's not blank canvas. It's yellow. It's pink. It's blue to make it look like the folds of a communion dress. I mean, it's stunning, isn't it? He really knew how to paint realism. He experimented with realism, sort of copying the style of one of his own Spanish heroes, Velázquez. So Velázquez did a piece on the right, and Picasso did a piece on the left. So he could paint like that. He started experimenting with using a limited palette, using fewer and fewer colors to achieve what he wanted to achieve. Started to get more and more angular. Can the body actually bend like that? You know, trying to get more and more angular. Finally, he did a tribute to Cézanne's bathers that we just saw. And if you compare them, you can see how very angular, how very geometric this started to get. One of the pieces that Picasso did that was actually finally shown in a gallery is this one, Houses on the Hill. Critics did not like this style at all. It was called Cubism because it looked like rectangles. It looked like squares. It looked very geometric. There was one art critic who said, "This looks like a painting of an explosion in a shingle factory." And yeah. So Picasso experimented more and more. He could, in fact, paint classically, but he said he spent the early part of his career learning to paint like the old masters, as we just saw, and he said he spent the rest of his life trying to paint with the freedom of a child. And so that's why we see his signature pieces looking something like this. He eventually did portrait painting, but also in this so-called Cubist style. This happens to be the art dealer that took care of his money issues for him. This is a piece that he painted of Ambroise Vollard, his art dealer. Which do you think is the most prominent feature in the image? Forehead? And that is, in fact, this is one of the few pieces he actually explained. He said, Ambroise Vollard was so shrewd in business, he wanted people to get that. The guy had a brain. This is the only piece that he ever explained. There were other pieces. Vollard was actually a dealer for a lot of other artists. And so you can see, we know what he really did look like. And there's a photograph of him. So it's kind of sort of like him. I guess you can kind of see some resemblance, but painted in his style. And of course, Picasso even evolved in his own style from something incredibly angular to something that's really, really difficult to identify. The nude in the armchair, you all see the nude. Hope no one is offended by the image of breasts. Yeah, like where is it? Where's the armchair? Yeah, who knows? Other Cubists painted in their own style. Some of them used images of newspapers, for instance. They painted what they called still lifes, trying to piece things together, making things look very, very difficult to identify what they are. I think this is just really cute. Juan Gris painted in the style of a Cubist, and he decided to do a tribute to Picasso. So he painted Picasso in the Cubist style. And that's what Picasso looked like. That's kind of cute. I just think that's cute. So we start to see these kinds of, this is actually a painting. This is not the thing that makes it a collage, in fact, was he put rope around the outside of it. And so what we see, basically coming from Picasso in the same way that we see coming from Einstein, is observers don't have to agree on what they see or what they measure. Everyone sees what they see. And we actually could ask Picasso, because he died around 1970, he gave lots and lots of interviews. And every time he gave an interview, the number one question always was, what are we supposed to see? What is that supposed to be of? And he said, you see what you see. Everyone brings their own life story to it. Everyone brings their own experience. You see what you see. Well, sir, is there some symbolism that we should be getting? And he would always say, no. If I wanted you to get something specific, I would have written a much more expressive title. I would have written a little paragraph instead of painting something. You see what you see. And this is the key thing, because Picasso said it before Einstein ever did, but they both agree on this. Everyone sees what they see, and there is no wrong interpretation. Everybody sees what they see. And of course, that really comes down to then, the only person, the only being who can actually see the real true truth of anything is going to be a God, the God, some intelligent designer who sees all the options and knows all the truth. So the best that we can do as human beings, and this mightily disappointed me because I went into science specifically thinking I'm going to know the truth. It turns out the best that we can do as human beings is to accept as truth those things in which the majority of reasonable people can agree. And as soon as you get to that, all of a sudden there are questions. What is a majority? Does it have to be 51%? Does it have to be all of us? Who is reasonable? Is it enough to say someone is reasonable because the country that you belong to has given you the right to vote? Does that make you reasonable? And if you're in a majority, we always assume, that's how our country works. You know, majority rules, and we always think, well, the majority, surely reason must win out. Does it? Does reason always win out? And Jan, I won't make any comments about any of this, but you can believe your own things. But it turns out, of course, if you have to make all these definitions, there's definitions of reasonability, definitions of what is a majority, what is religion, what is politics, philosophy. What if the majority of reasonable people believe in intolerance? Does that make it an absolute truth? And that gets to be very sticky and very icky. So I will stop there. I hope this has shaken you a little bit, that there really is no such thing as absolute truth. And that's why I think the society is so important, is because we have to trust each other at some point. So thank you. Thanks for your attention. I'm sorry I went too long. Thank you. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
And to stay on time, then we'll have our announcements and do our closing circle. I think we'll ask the professor to hang around and we'll talk with her afterwards. Well,
You have to go pretty far forward.
okay, announcements. So next Sunday, the music of Terrell and McDonough, wonderful. A couple of really talented musicians, poets, writers. I highly recommend. They'll be here at 10:30 next Sunday. The following Sunday, the 30th, at 10 o'clock, Ann and Don Leek will be cooking pancakes for us. It's our annual pancake breakfast. And on the 7th, Chad Snyder will be speaking. So I hope you can attend any or all of those.
And Chad Snyder is a union minister from Minnesota.
Thank you, Allison. And so your presence is a gift to all of us, and if you have financial means you'd like to contribute, there's a little basket in the entryway. There's coffee. Allison baked some regular and gluten-free brownies that are in the kitchen, and hopefully Professor Korenic will hang around. And now if you would stand, please, and gather, and we'll say our closing words.